Let's get into it. Breaking news in college basketball this afternoon. Our former colleague, Doug Gottlieb, is the new head coach at Green Bay. He's apparently going to run Green Bay's men's basketball program while also doing a daily radio show. That sounds challenging.
You're next. You're next.
As somebody who tries to do a lot of different stuff on the same day as well, I can just tell you, sometimes it gets challenging. Orlando, you got the headline, CBSSports.com. What can you tell us?
All right, there's a lot to unpack here. This has been building steam for about a day. I actually, full transparency, I think this was pretty much agreed to on Monday night, and we almost dropped about a 12:30 a.m. headline here on Gottlieb. But the AD, Josh Moon, did tell me on the record that Doug Gottlieb had not been hired yet and that the decision was not in, so we held off even though it felt like that's where we were going. And this is among the stranger headlines of the offseason. Gottlieb is the 66th coaching change of this 2024 cycle. There's a lot to peel out with this thing. First off, is Gottlieb is he's an outspoken sports media personality and has been for 2 decades. As my story details, like, he's a highly regarded game analyst when it comes to actually evaluating and assessing college basketball and being a commentator when it comes to that stuff. Very, very good. He's polarizing for some of his other things he's said. He's faced lawsuits for some of the stuff he said in the past. And because he is a polarizing figure and we are doing this podcast in real time, there is a lot of skepticism from people that are seeing the story, sports fans within college basketball. I'm just going to pass along the opinion that I've heard from a few coaches that have learned this to be likely in the past 12 to 16 hours, GP. They are not optimistic that Gottlieb can make this work. And not necessarily because he's never run a program, which is true. He's never worked in Division I coaching, period. He has coached grassroots ball. He has coached internationally in international competition in Israel, both as an assistant for Bruce Pearl and then actually as a head coach a few years back. So he has run teams before, but he's never run in Division I. It's not that. It's the fact that he is going, and this was a thing a year ago when he was a candidate. He was a candidate at Green Bay last year when Sundance Wicks got the job, and he wanted to continue his radio show. Literally getting a call from a coach in the league that Gottlieb is going to coach in right now. That's going to have to wait. And there's so much, I think, understandable skepticism over, with everything that comes with coaching in college basketball in 2024. And it's never been more, I think we said it on the last show, it's never been more difficult to do this at the mid-major level than right now. On top of that, you're going to continue to host a national radio show on top of all that. It seems from the outset like a losing proposition. If Gottlieb is this serious about coaching, and I do believe he, in his heart, is that serious about the opportunity. He interviewed for Oklahoma State. Like, he's been public about his desire to do this. How do you run a program, help manage class schedules, all the travel, the shoot-arounds that come with it, all the practices, all the NIL responsibilities, and have a daily radio show? And does that even work as a net positive? You can make the argument, and someone did to me on Monday night, if you're Green Bay, what do you have to lose? Like, you're going to make a splash. I guess, sure, that's fine. But there is the other alternative to it. And one coach passed along an opinion Tuesday morning to me that was hiring Gottlieb could be the demise of Green Bay's program. So a polarizing hire, but I will not fault him on this. It is fascinating and it is interesting. What are your thoughts? And when do you plan on running a Division I program as a fellow daily radio show host?
Yeah, I don't think I can add anything else to my schedule.
I sure would love to see you try.
Much less a Division I men's coaching basketball job. Like, just practically speaking, like, I'm not sure why either employer would be comfortable with this. Like, we're hiring you to run our men's basketball program, and then, like, in the middle of the day every day, you're just going to go do a radio show?
Well, and real quick, and I'm functionally uncomfortable with the idea that you can be a Division I coach and a media member at the same time. Like, those two things simultaneously, they do not compute for me. That's all.
Yeah, I don't care about that so much, just in the sense that when I was coming up, it was very like, when I was the Memphis beat writer, I would never have my kids in Memphis gear or Ole Miss gear. My wife went to Ole Miss. They would never be in Ole Miss stuff because I was just very concerned about the optics of everything. like I had a license plate when I graduated college that was a University of Memphis license plate. I changed that out just because I didn't want any of these weird optics mixing fan and reporter together. Fast forward 25 years, nobody cares about that stuff anymore. Like I don't know whether it was Bill Simmons or Scott Van Pelt or whomever, but they certainly blurred the lines and made it okay to be a journalist and also a fan. And so this is just another step in that direction. It's obviously unusual. I'm not offended by the idea of, can coaches be media members and vice versa? Like I said, the media industry has changed so much where all the lines are blurred. I just think practically, if I were Green Bay, I wouldn't want my men's basketball coach doing a daily radio show. And if I were Fox Sports, I wouldn't want one of my national hosts running a basketball program outside of a radio show. I say this, Doug might be able to knock it out of the park. We'll see. I think all mid-major hires are risky by definition. So yeah, this is risky, but anybody they would have hired would have been risky. You're at the mid-major level. When you make a hire, you are largely, betting on somebody who hasn't done anything significant yet, unless you're betting on somebody who just got fired from a better job. So, there's inherent risk anyway with this kind of stuff. I would use the word unusual more than risky because it's just obviously unusual. And again, Doug might knock it out of the park, but I think from my experiences, when you start trying to do too much, you get to a point where you feel like you're not doing great at anything. And because you just spread too thin. And you talk to coaches all the time. I talk to coaches, they tell me that they are super, 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 super busy, completely overwhelmed. How you would have time to do a quality radio show every day in addition to running a Division I men's basketball program, that seems difficult. But, I'm happy to watch him try.
Yeah, it will be fascinating to see how this works because the time constraints on coaches, they just have never been tougher. And overcoming that and being extremely efficient with your time, plus, just once we even get into the season and the travel. But here we are. I mean, Gottlieb hit it off with Josh Moon, the AD, a year ago when they went through this process. Sundance Wicks ultimately obviously got that job and then did a good job in one season. And this is even only a thing right now. If you're really not all the way caught up, this is a thing now because Jeff Linder coached at Wyoming, and Wyoming's had a tough go of it the past couple of years. Linder is a longtime friend of Grant McCasland at Texas Tech, and McCasland had a spot that opened on his staff, and he afforded Linder a bigger paycheck with more job security. And, I don't know if Linder would have been fired if Wyoming didn't make the tournament next year, but certainly it wasn't a great situation there. Wyoming has one of the worst NIL situations in the Mountain West. And so he leaves. Sundance Wicks was an assistant under Linder for 3 or 4 seasons. He got the Green Bay job, and then he came on back home. He's running the program there, and then the Green Bay search commenced, and Gottlieb is right there with all of it. But if you're Green Bay, you get there are a few mid-major hirings over the past decade or so that come with a bigger name attached to it. That promises you nothing, though. And I'm not saying Gottlieb will wind up like this, but Isaiah Thomas once was hired at FIU, and it was not a successful experiment whatsoever there. But Doug has been vocal for a long time that he wanted a chance to do this. If you're wondering why Green Bay of all places, he was born in Milwaukee. His father, who Doug has, consistently over the years, his late father speaks glowingly of, he coached at Milwaukee when Doug was a child. And so this is not so far away. So there are some ties to the state there, and he wants to give it a go. He basically was only going to. I was told Gottlieb was only going, and he has a really good job, and he can dictate the terms under which he would take any coaching positions. But I was told he would only be a head coach at. Or an assistant at an Oklahoma State, or if it was going to be a mid-major, it had to have some sort of sentimental connection to him in a place where he thought they could actually do something. We'll see if that is the case at Green Bay. But this, you say it's unusual. It is unprecedented. We are going to have someone that is going to run a program and be a daily national radio show host. It's wild to me, man. I'd love to be proven wrong. It's hard for me to see how this is successful, though. It is hard for me to see how this is successful, but Remains to be seen. And maybe he can help their NIL situation, and we'll see who he gets on staff. But I still have been trying to wrap my head around this over the past 24 hours when this became more and more of a realistic possibility. And so here we are. People in the chat saying you can, by the way, do this pod, do your show, and run the Memphis Tigers. I'd love to see it.
I have no interest in that. I'm more comfortable commenting on college basketball programs than I am trying to run one, I think. But, maybe someday. I guess you can't rule anything out. In all seriousness, I understand anybody's skepticism here. I am confused by trying to host a daily radio show and also run a men's basketball program. It's not the way I would do it.
I thought you were about to say, I'm confused by trying to run a daily radio or do a daily radio show and be on a national college basketball podcast. I thought that's what was coming. I swear to God.
I'm confused by that aspect of it. But in all seriousness, I'm happy for him. He's clearly wanted to get into coaching, and he's had a pretty public desire to do this, and has very publicly made it clear at different points he would have liked to have been the head coach at his alma mater. And that obviously has never happened. And, I don't know how Doug feels about it, but to put yourself out there so publicly, like, pick me, and then they just don't, that can be humbling on some level. So like he's made it clear this is what he wants. And now he gets the opportunity I always like taking what ifs off the table. Mm-hmm. There's this line in some song somewhere about the worst, or maybe it's a movie. I don't know. It's just something I heard it once and it's always stuck with me.
Okay.
Apparently not as well as
you sure it was a book? You sure it wasn't nothing?
It could have been a book.
Okay.
But it was like the regrets you'll have late in life, they'll rarely be about things you've done. They'll be about things that you didn't do, or that you never pursued, or you never tried, or whatever. And so I'm a big believer in, if you can take these what ifs off the table, so you don't have to wonder your whole life, man, what if I'd ever done it? What if I ever tried that? Then I don't know. That's the way I prefer to approach life, even if I'm not perfect at it. So Doug's not going to have to grow old wondering, man, if I'd ever got into coaching, how would that have gone? I really wanted to, but I just never either did it or had the opportunity to do it. Well, now he's going to get to scratch that what if off of his list, and he'll never have to wonder what it's like. He might get into it and realize it was a mistake, or it might propel him to a high major job. As always, we'll see, but he won't have to wonder what it would have been like to chase this. He's now chased it. He's going to do it, and we'll see how it goes.
Last thing for me, then we can move on to the next subject. I agree with you on this. I do like the fact that he is putting what he's got into this now. Not enough that he's willing to say, I'm giving up radio. He's not doing that, but willing to just give it a go, give it a try, and knowing that when he's doing this, there will be an army of people that just do not think it will work. A lot of people that will be rooting against him for it to work. So we wait and see on that. It will obviously be a spectacle, not a skeptical. It's a tough one for me. I want to give credit to Quinn in the chat. She is correctly noting that Tom Brennan coached Vermont. I know this because I was there. He coached the Vermont men's basketball team, and for a number of years did a morning drive show in Vermont. Corman, the coach. So we have seen this a little bit different with Gottlieb in 2024, having been a long-established media personality doing a national radio show and, filling in for Colin Coward here and there and doing random television work. That's a little bit different than what Brennan was doing, but we have seen a coach do that and run a program before. So not completely unprecedented by pure definition. Good shout, Quinn.
Yeah, I would just say the differences to me are obvious. Like, it's one thing to be the head coach of Vermont, be doing I don't want to say little radio show because it might have been a big radio show.
How dare you insult Corman, the coach? I think that was on the Champ, by the way.
I didn't mean to. I take that back. I apologize. What I mean is, like, you're doing a show in Vermont. I mean, you tell me it was a show in Vermont, right?
It was.
Okay,
yes.
So like you're in your wheelhouse anyway. Like, Doug Gottlieb is now going to find himself in a situation where he is recruiting for Green Bay, running practices for Green Bay, traveling with Green Bay, coaching games with Green Bay. And oh, by the way, tomorrow when you wake up, you got to do a radio show, but you ain't talking about Green Bay. I mean, I hope not. You ain't going to go on Fox Sports Radio and do a 3-hour Green Bay show. So you need to be talking about the NFL stuff that happened last night and the NBA stuff that happened last night and whatever else you're going to be talking about on a national radio show. So you are really, pulling from two totally different places. And you can fake it sometimes, but eventually people are going to start to realize if you're spread too thin. And I don't know how you can't get spread too thin trying to do all of these things, but I'm happy to watch him give it his best shot. And sincerely, like, we both work with Doug. We've both known him for a long time. I wish him luck, and I hope it goes well. I understand the industry skepticism, but I hope it goes well.